Welcome back to Fulfillment Therapy. Today we have a special guest, Alicia Rose, visiting us here. And she's actually a podcast host herself. And she's going to tell us a little bit about fulfillment and her journey. So thank you so much for coming on the show, Alicia. We're excited to have you.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here. I'm a big fan of the show.
We're glad to have you. And just to hear a little bit about your journey. Before we started recording, you were saying that you are in Michigan and you're a homesteader. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey?
So I am a suburban homesteader. I have always had the dream of living on a bunch of land and having all the animals, and that's always had my heart. But I found myself in a sweet neighborhood on a quarter acre of land. And our neighborhood is just the best place to raise kids. We have the most awesome neighbors. And then one day I was like, you know what? Why can't I homestead right where I'm at? And 7 chickens later, a huge garden later, and learning how to preserve and do all the things. I have plenty more to learn, but I realized I am a suburban homesteader. So that's been a little bit of my journey, and I absolutely love where life is at right now.
I honestly don't think I've ever heard that term before, but I really love it because I'm going to bloom where I'm planted. Maybe I'm not on this huge acreage or out on this ranch somewhere, but I'm going to do the things that I love wherever I'm at. So that's so beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, we can create the life we want wherever we're at. And sometimes we just have to be a little bit more creative, but it's always possible.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And tell me a little bit about your show and what it is that you do, your specialty.
Absolutely. So my podcast is called The Roses Homestead, and I teach people how to become suburban homesteaders. So there's urban homesteaders. So that is if you lived in an apartment and maybe you're working with a balcony, or maybe you need to rent some shared land space to garden, things of that nature. And then there's suburban homesteading where you have a little bit more land. And then there's rural homesteading where you would be on the traditional huge ranch and all the acreage. So I teach people to do the first two. So I teach them how to homestead on a smaller scale of land. I teach things like canning, preserving, gardening, cooking from scratch, raising chickens, maintaining a home, and all while being present with your children and your family, and just completely trying their best to tune out the noisy distractions of life that we really don't need. That life is programmed into us that we have to do all these things. The calendar has to be full. You have to do more. And I don't agree with that. I won't live that way anymore. And so I want to teach women how they can stop the burnout and being overstretched and overstimulated, and they can live a peaceful life.
That is wonderful. That's very much what I speak to oftentimes too, how you've been able to really hone in on that message. It sounds like to do less and to not buy into that culture that you have to make this really busy life in order to be successful or to feel good about yourself. To put that away so that you can be more present and show up in those relationships in the way that would bring you the most fulfillment, essentially. Is that right? Oh, I love that. So beautiful. And
Thank you.
on top of that, you're doing these other things like the homesteading, things that a lot of us would maybe feel overwhelmed by. Like I've done canning, I've done some of those things. We've had a garden forever, recently let it go a little bit. There's a lot of listeners that we have that are maybe in my situation or just feeling a little overwhelmed by all those balls that they're juggling. And they want to have that healthier lifestyle or more maybe of a homesteading lifestyle. They want to have that health and that connection and that presence and do less like they're talking about. What are some simple ways that we can implement that in our lives?
I think the first thing that we need to do is we need to sit down and be real with ourselves. And I would grab a pen and piece of paper and write down what your best life looks like. Write down who you want to be and how you want to live and how you want to show up, and get completely clear on the life that you want to have, because so many people have, not maliciously, but things in our head of what we're supposed to be, how we're supposed to do it, and all these things. So I would get super clear on how you want to live. And then I would look at the reality of your life, the reality of your planner, of all your commitments, and I would take away every single thing that you do not have to do. Because if you're already busy, then you go to add on gardening or getting chickens or something else, you're just going to spin out of control. Trust me, because I did that. So I would get super clear on the life you want to live. And then I would take away everything that you do not have to do. And then I would find something that you're passionate about and I would start very small. So if you love to cook from scratch, I would encourage you to pick one recipe that you would like to make. Maybe you want to learn how to make sourdough bread. Maybe you want to make like cookies from scratch. Keep it super simple. Start with the cookies. That's easier. And then build on that. And then that's going to be like paving block. Every time you do one thing, you're going to get a little bit more confidence. You're going to find fulfillment in it. And then that's going to keep growing.
That's a great idea. I love that. Just getting really clear, writing down what your best life looks like very specifically if you can, and take away all that you don't have to do. That's a great simple step that we can do. What about, and I'm just going to give you a scenario that I've had and I know that clients have talked to me about, like after the summer, after the holidays, you get in that rut where you just eat whatever. It's all about convenience. It's maybe not as structured. Whatever about those people, those parents maybe that want to eat better, but they don't want this complete overhaul. Just maybe just simply with snacks. What's something that you recommend for that? That's realistic.
Yeah. So I have a simple system that I do in my house. My kids are 11 and 12, so they're old enough to help. Your
Mhm.
kids might be old enough to help too. And even if they're small, they can have little jobs, right? So I think it's important to get the kids in the kitchen and get them helping you because it's not your job to do every single thing in the house. So what I do is once a week when I do our meal plan, I'm going to give you a really quick recap. So what I do is every Sunday I go through and I completely clean the fridge out. I throw everything away that we're not going to use. I wipe everything down. I have already planned my meals. That can be for another conversation if that's easier. But then I have a snack drawer and I have the kids pick out 3 things they want to have that week. And then we simply prepare it. A really common thing that we do is ants on a log, celery, peanut butter, and raisins. We get these small mason jars, put peanut butter in there, cut up celery sticks, sprinkle raisins in there, and then just close the lid, put that in the drawer. We'll cube up some cheese, wash some fruit, and have it cut up if it needs to be cut up, put it in the jars. So we have all these like super quick, healthy grab and go snacks that the kids can help assemble. They usually actually think it's fun, especially if they get to pick out what they want to eat. And then they can just grab it out of the fridge. And then once the jars are empty, they're washed, I put the lids back on them and then they go right back in the snack drawer. So the next week, we're not looking for jars and lids. And
Mm,
it's very smooth, it's very quick, and it takes about half an hour with kids helping. I could probably do it in 10 minutes myself.
I love that. My kids go to school and they're eating all of those things there. I guess it could be for after school snacks. But my husband and I own our own business. And I was like, oh, it would really only take a few minutes a week to create weekly snacks for us. But I do love that idea of just putting it in a mason jar, just having that designated time and structure that you just do that. It doesn't have to be like, how long does it really last? I used to do that with salads, but I don't remember. If you did it on Sunday, would the snacks last all week?
Mine do. Yeah. Yeah. If it's a salad, I feel like about 4 days is
Yeah.
about the time limit for lettuce. But most things like vegetables and fruits and stuff like that, it totally lasts the week.
Oh, that's good to know.
So
Yeah, Sunday activity. Yeah, I love that. Okay. Because stories resonate so much with people, I'm curious about your story. Like, how did you create more fulfillment and just shift your life in a way that you were able to, what you said, write down your best life? Did you do that for yourself? And take us through what that looked like for you, if you wouldn't mind.
sure. This was birthed out of extreme burnout and fatigue.
Yeah.
And I got to the point where I just was like, I can't live like this anymore. And I spent a lot of time in prayer and really looking at my life. And I'm like, this is not the way I want to live. I was constantly pulled in a million directions, and I literally was so burnt out. I woke up tired. I went to bed tired. Like I was always frazzled. It was really miserable. And I didn't want to show up as that kind of wife, that kind of parent, that kind of friend. And then one day I just had enough. And then in a journaling practice, I wrote down like, who am I? Who do I want to be? and what kind of life do I want to live? And then once I did that, it looked kind of crazy on paper. When I started this process, I would have friends pop over and they're like, "What are you doing in here?" It was a pretty quick shift once I had made my mind up, but I had to just get to the end of my rope with being stressed, frustrated, and burned out. So, yeah, I definitely wrote down what my life would look like. And I would even go as far as how do I feel when I'm living this new life? I visualize how will I feel? Like I'll wake up rested. I'll be excited for my day. I'm not going to dread my day. And I'm living that now. It's so cool. So anybody that's in a really tough place right now, just know that you can turn it around and the tools already in you to change and the life you're supposed to live and who you're supposed to be, all the clues are already in you. You just have to slow down and take a little time to listen. Listen to yourself.
Isn't that so funny, Alicia, how simple it can be, and yet it's so hard for so many of us to actually do that. That slow down key, especially that part of it, is just so pivotal in slowing down enough to listen to what we already feel is within our hearts already. Just asking yourself those questions. Tell me if I got this right. Who am I? Who do I want to be? And what do I want the future to look like? Is that what you asked yourself? Yeah.
Yeah.
Simple questions. And yet, if we don't slow down enough to ask ourselves those questions, then we just keep going through these motions, like on that hamster wheel, not living with true fulfillment. So, yeah, very,
100%.
very simple, very beautiful too. And your life completely changes.
I hope you try this. I hope you guys do this journal exercise, but know that it does take some time. While when I got to the end of my rope and I decided it's time to change, that changed quickly. But I lived in that constant overwhelm for many years to the point where I was getting panic attacks.
Yeah.
So I lived in that really hard place for a long time. But through that pain, it helped me get the clarity of what I wanted and the life I wanted to create. So I think it can take some time to get to that point, but then once you have your mind made up, I think it can go very fast.
So for you, that looked like, if I understand correctly, getting animals, starting things that you wanted to experiment with for a while. I don't know what, maybe that's canning. Can you share a little bit about specifics of what that was for you?
Yeah, so let's see, the first thing I started with was a garden, and it wasn't huge. I planted some herbs and some tomatoes, some beans, squash, and peppers. And that was when I started it. And then I was like, I really want to can. My grandma always canned and grew everything. And it was a sweet memory for me. So I was like, I want to do that. So then I started canning like some small things, just a little bit here and there. And then it kept growing. And then I really wanted chickens. Always just loved chickens for whatever reason. They're really cool. That's why I love them. But then I thought, I can't have chickens. I don't have all this acreage. And then I challenged that belief and I was like, why can't I have chickens?
Yeah.
Like in my head, I thought I cannot have these. Now there are rules and regulations. Some people you actually we were fine to do it, but I can have chickens. So I went and got some chickens. And now we have fresh eggs every day and we have these cute little pets running around. So yeah, I would say that was our journey. And then I got into making bread.
That's beautiful. Like how you stopped making excuses. You became almost more of this owner rather than staying in that victimhood. And you're just like, okay, can I really not do these things? Or is there space for that in my
Mhm.
life? Can I create this? And moving forward with that, and how really we can all do that, no matter what that dream is. Could I live around the world with my children? Could I do a TED talk? Whatever it might be, that there's space for that if we'll open our minds and our hearts to that.
Absolutely. And challenge your limiting beliefs. Challenge them. If you have this nagging desire in your heart and you're like, oh, it's not for me, it's not in my cards, I can't do it, ask yourself why. And then keep asking yourself why. Sometimes you have to really dig. Like maybe it might be, could we live in an RV and travel the world with our kids? You might say no because we have school. And then why? Could you homeschool? You
Yeah,
could.
right.
Just keep digging and then weigh the pros and cons and see if it's a smart choice for you.
Absolutely. Yeah. I have done that practice several times with a lot of my clients, and I love that when they're able to
Oh,
be
cool.
like, have those aha moments. Oh, maybe it doesn't have to be this black and white way. Maybe there's another path for me. Appreciate you bringing that up. Can you share with us just maybe a last thing that you feel like would help people, maybe if they're wanting to have their own homestead, or maybe if they're just wanting to pursue their dreams, but they feel a little bit stuck? Any tips that you could leave with us about how they could get to that next step and live their best life?
There's something I heard years back, and this was so profound to me, and I bring it to mind all the time. So, anytime that you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. So, when you want to be present with your kids, you can't be present and you can't be busy at the same time, right? You need to find a way to slow down and take some things off your plate, right? So you need to have your why. So if for your audience, it's probably their kids, right? So your kids would be your why. So why do I want to live this best life? I want to be the best mom to my kids. I want to be with my kids. I want to be present with my kids. So keep that top of mind. And then anytime something arises where you're asked to do something or you have an invitation or anything like that, I want you to ask yourself, is this worth saying yes to when I'm going to have to say no to my why? And I'm not talking about like things we have to do. I'm talking about the extra things that kind of seem to gobble up our time. So I would just tell your audience to be very clear on their why and compare that why to every yes that they give out. It's going to help them be more present.
Yeah, that's such beautiful, simple advice for going back to that why. What is your why? What do you want more than anything? And that might be different for all of us. But then comparing that, like, I'm trying to think how you said it. So you can't be busy and present at the same time. So keep going back to that why. So if I say yes to this, will this take away or prevent me from being my best self as a parent or those types of things? That's a great marker. Did I say that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, really appreciate that. That's just, again, that simple exercise that help us realign our values with how we are living and helping us be more authentic in our life and showing up the way that we want to. So, very well said. Thank you so much. And if we want to find you, Alicia, how can we find you?
You can find me lots of places. So the podcast is The Roses Homestead. You can find that on Apple Podcast, anywhere you listen to podcasts. I have a blog. It's called Roses Homestead Living, and that's where you can find recipes, things of that nature. And on Instagram, it's The Roses Homestead. So yeah, one of those places would be great. I'd love to talk with any of your listeners. If anybody has any questions, I would love to talk with them or encourage them or help with any tips or
Wonderful. Yeah. I'll put all of your links in the show notes. So if you want to reach out to Alicia, they will be there. And thanks again for coming on the show. We appreciated having you.
Thank you. Such an honor to be here. I appreciate you very much.
Of course. Hey, friends. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, chances are someone else would too. Would you take 30 seconds to share this with a friend who's looking for greater family fulfillment? And while you're sharing, tell me what you think about the show by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts. It refuels me when I hear this podcast is helping you. No matter what your house or your hair looks like, I'll meet you back here every Monday and Thursday morning for more episodes. Until then.